This is Real Talk, the customer insights show with Jenn Vogel, a top-rated live stream and podcast in the market research and insights industry. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen on all major podcast channels. Join Jenn and her guests for a weekly discussion around topics that will help you understand your customers better. Real Talk is presented to you by VoxPopMe, the leader in video research and ranked number 1 in qualitative research by Grit 2 years running. Here's today's conversation.
Hello, insights professionals, marketers, and everyone who wants to understand their customers better. I'm Jenn Vogel, and today I want to talk about bringing newer qualitative research methods into well-established companies. To discuss the topic, I'm joined by Jo Munton, Global Insights Senior Manager at a 136-year-old company, Avon. Welcome to the show, Jo.
Oh, hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you on today. And I see are you in the Avon offices this morning or afternoon for you?
I am, and it's a welcome sight, to be honest, because obviously we've been working from home for nearly 2 years now, and we're starting to come back, which is great. So we got the approval to start going back into the office a couple of weeks ago. So it's just a nice feeling, and there's work going on, but it's just so nice to see everybody, to have a little chat with everyone.
I know, after so long of being sort of all on Zoom, as soon as you get in person with people, there's little work that gets done for the first part. It's like, you just need a good catch up, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes there's people that you're on these calls with, but you've never actually met in real life. And then I see them, and they're taller than I thought they were, or they're pregnant, and there's lots of surprises, but it's a lovely surprise.
That's great. Well, nice to have that energy, being in the office after so long of not, and really thrilled to have you on the show today. And to get us started, maybe you can just kick us off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in the insights industry.
Sure, Jen. Yeah. So I've been working with Avon it's coming into my 8th year now. And prior to Avon, I had a number of other roles within research, data, and analytics. But I kind of really found my feet here at Avon. And what I particularly like about the company that I work in at the moment, it's to do with all the things that when you're a little girl that you aspire to have, the clothes, the makeup and things like that. So kind of working as a research professional in makeup and beauty is kind of the dream. So I've worked here for the past 8 years. I began very much kind of at a regional role, understanding insights within Europe. And then a few years ago, I took on a global role where we looked at various categories, such as, fragrance, colour, which is our makeup category. And my current role is I'm the research lead for Beauty Plus, which is our non-beauty offerings. That's things like fashion and homeware. But then also I lead major projects that go cross-market. So if we need to research our representatives who are our sales consultants, for example, that project will come under my responsibility. But then also any sort of research where we need to look at other markets all at the same time. Potentially it might be about a product, but potentially it might be about a service as well. So it's a real good combination of kind of research techniques, but also kind of organization and planning as well.
Yeah, I mean, what was the transition like of going from kind of a regional role to this global role where you are thinking about those sort of multi-market studies? Like, what are some of the nuances that maybe you weren't ready for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I was kind of based in EMEA, and with that, I'm in the UK, so I always think about, as a consumer in the UK, how do I feel? And UK potentially is quite aligned to some of the other, westernized markets as well, such as Germany and France. With Avon, we have a really good presence in the likes of Poland and Russia. So learning about those in my European role was really interesting. But then when we opened up to a global role and kind of learning about Asia Pacific and also LATAM as well, Latin America, it was really eye-opening. And Avon has been around for 135 years, and the different perceptions and the different understandings and the different awareness levels across those markets is vast, and it was so, it was very much like a learning curve, understanding the different cultures, the different, just the way consumers live their life in these different markets. and that's the thing with a researcher, you kind of start off by thinking, what it's like for you and how you consume products. But then, in a different country somewhere else, it's totally different, and it's really eye-opening. But what we have here at Avon, we have a really good network, and we've got a good network of, marketing professionals and also research professionals in different countries. So that really helps. And what we often do is have like onboarding sessions. So, we'll have one of our research professionals, say, based in Brazil, they will do a talk on Brazil, just so we get to know the consumer a little bit better. And it's those kind of, those initial learnings when you're trying to understand a country a little bit better is so valuable, because then when you go to do particular research at a particular project, the kind of questions you can ask, and potentially you can kind of preempt what kind of results you'll get as well.
Yeah, that's such like a key piece. It's like before you kind of go in and ask questions about your brand or your products or your services, like just try to understand like the basics, right? Like how do people live their lives and what's important to them? Like what are their rituals and how is that different from your experience or other places that you've researched? I think that's so, that's so important, that first step.
Definitely. And I think it's probably one of the first steps that, any kind of research professional should take, very much kind of understanding the person at the heart of, kind of the product development stage, understand them, what's their day-to-day life like, do they have children to drop off? Do they live in a house, or do they live in a flat? Do they have a garden? All those kind of things, because, understanding about your core target consumer is at the heart of everything. And, and sometimes, that's where a lot of, research projects or even products fall down, because they don't actually understand the inherent nature of, the person that they're trying to target. So, with any study, we'll always try and, understand as much about our target consumer as possible. Obviously, within Avon, we'll have our own target segments, but, potentially, that vital pieces of information of, getting video diaries from consumers. We might develop a product, but it might be used in a slightly different way. And you're like, oh, yeah, I never thought of doing it like that. So, the application of products is different, but also just kind of the understanding of products is different, and how they refer to things and how they talk things through. It is really valuable, particularly when we're trying to do some sort of global communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this is a good segue. Like, could you talk a little bit about like how Avon is structured and how Insights, like what are the different departments that Insights serves? You talked about Beauty Plus, which is actually something I'm not familiar with, so I want to dig into that a little bit. But how does Insights kind of serve the different departments within Avon?
Yeah, so we have a global insights team, and there's probably around about 8 of us, and we work, across different markets, and we kind of deal with the cross market studies, if you like, and also the data and analytics that are associated with that. We also have global category leads as well, and we have 4 key categories, they being makeup, which is our colour cosmetics. We have fragrance, which is your aftershaves and your perfumes, and then we have care, which takes into account facial skincare, body care, and toiletries. And we'll have little teams, insight teams that are dedicated to those particular categories. And the 4th category is Beauty Plus, which is what I lead on, and that is non-beauty, so it'll be things like fashion and homeware, home fragrance, candles, things like that. And that's probably kind of quite a common misconception. People consider Avon to just be about makeup and potentially just about lipsticks and skincare, but it's not. Core of our business is in this kind of Beauty Plus space, because what we find is that consumers are actually, they like to look through the brochure that we have, but then sometimes they might be looking for a scarf or a bag to complement the kind of look that they're going for. So it's actually a really good, order builder for us that we can kind of add on as well. What we also have is we have kind of the global teams that are responsible for the categories, but then we also have our individual research people in individual markets. So Avon has a number of top markets. We have the likes of Brazil, Russia, Poland, the Philippines. And we have research personnel in all of our top markets, and they're the ones who kind of give that extra level of detail to our markets. If our global marketing have got a particular idea, I know that I can go to my local insight personnel and say, look, do you think this would resonate well? Can you give me your feedback? If we're going to do this particular survey, how do you recommend we approach it? And having that extra level of just local, just that local information is really, really valuable to the team.
Yeah. It sounds like with such a, kind of complex structure in a large company, there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen amongst those teams.
Absolutely. And sometimes you think, in many organizations, research is probably considered a bit of an afterthought, and potentially you might do that at the end, but having that insight up front, knowing about the consumer is so valuable. And what we'll often try and do is share as much of that information to like our global brand marketing team, to our creative teams, to our digital teams, to learn about the consumers, because a consumer in a certain place will be very, very different to somebody else. But the collaboration is key. We often have products, and we need our products to be able to appeal to as many consumers as possible. So therefore, when we go out to our markets to say, is this a particular product that you would consider for your market, and we would need the uptake to be very positive, or else potentially the product probably won't go into development.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's so key. Which, I mean, probably that's a good thing, right? When you do that research and you find out, well, it's not really the uptick we wanted, then you can focus that resource on something that's going to perform better.
Definitely, Jen. And that's a great point. It's sometimes the research doesn't provide you with the answers necessarily that our teams might be looking for, but right. it stops us from making decisions that ultimately will be more costly down the line. So I think having that understanding of what consumers want from their products, understanding their challenges and their tensions right up front will really help in the long run when we begin to develop those products.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how does Avon, how do you use consumer insights to compete, especially with, Avon's been around a long time. There's a lot of challenger brands and a lot of emerging brands that are, coming into the market. How do you use insights to compete?
Now, Jen, we've got probably something that a lot of other beauty companies or other retail companies don't have. We have an army of Avon representatives. There's about 5 million, just over 5 million across the world, which is basically, our sales force. And I don't think potentially no other company has the size of sales force that we have. So they're our number one kind of core target, if you like. We need to please that representative, our sales consultants. Any product that we develop, we have to make sure that the representative understands it. We have to make sure that the representative knows how to actually sell that product on. So making sure that we understand it's usually her needs, but we do have a lot of male representatives as well. But understanding what they want is absolutely vital. And I think that's what's really helped us. And like you say, Jen, we have been around for an awful long time, but that actually helps us, when I first started at Avon, everyone's like, oh, my mother used to use that, or my grandmother used to use that. And there's that sense of nostalgia, and also that kind of connection with the brand. And I think that's a really, really nice thing, because also, you have to look, we've been developing products for, over 135 years. And, there's a reason that we're still doing what we do. We've got a fantastic product and development center based in the US that continually, strive to get the best innovation for our customers. So it's very much kind of, a collaboration between, ensuring that our representatives are happy. They're our biggest and bravest ambassadors. We've got a fantastic R&D facility that helps us develop products. We've recently developed, a new serum that promises, 7 skincare benefits in 7 days, and it's fantastic. But what we can do is we can get our representatives to sell it for us. They can do their before and afters. In the world of social media and social selling now, our representatives are, our biggest asset. We can, we'll see on social media that they're sharing with their potential customers. And I think it's a really nice way of how Avon has evolved. It's not necessarily door-to-door selling anymore. It is in some markets, because that still resonates really well. But, it might be a representative selling our products online, or potentially it might just be, our own websites as well. But having those kind of reviews and those befores and afters have really helped us kind of, continue to be a force to be reckoned with in the beauty market for so long.
Like, you couldn't see my face. I'm like shocked at how many people you have selling Avon. That's incredible. That's so many people. 5 million representatives. And, it makes sense that they're kind of a core target audience for consumer insights.
Absolutely.
They're consuming the products, but also selling them and on your behalf. So like understanding their needs is probably so crucial. In addition to, the people who are going to buy the products on the.
Absolutely. And what we often find, Jen, is that our representative is quite similar to the type of consumer that they sell to. A lot of our consumers have, like, we call them kind of friends and family representatives. And therefore, they potentially buy the products, but they just sell on a small scale. They don't do it as a big business opportunity, but they just sell to friends and family. They might get a little bit of, a bit of commission for selling the products or whatever. And it's just enough to, keep them engaged and keep them engaged with Avon. But, if we can kind of, get her on board and, make sure that any products that we do develop, really resonate with her, she will obviously then go and pass that information on to her friends and family. She'll make recommendations, and that's how we kind of build up that trust, and we have done over the years.
Yeah, it's incredible, and you really can't compete with the nostalgia piece. I mean, like you said, I know people who are still like, I swear by Avon products, like 80-year-old family members who are like, I've been using it for my whole life. And, that's something you can't create with these new brands that are kind of emerging in this social selling ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. We are aware of, obviously, the social selling and the kind of other brands potentially consider themselves as, social selling or network selling. We're on that journey as well. We have our representatives, but we also have, opportunities to purchase online as well, and also, through our social channels. But we're doing a really good job of kind of bringing it all together, so that we kind of cover every aspect, of the kind of the channel journey. And we are starting to do, potentially some stores as well, particularly in Asia, and that's something that we've probably been toying with the idea for a long time, but obviously at the moment there's a big thing around, about experience. People, wanting to experience the product. So potentially having it in store, plus a representative that can kind of top up that shopping as well is really valuable. I think what Avon has also done in the past few years as well, we provide samples, because what we do know is that, if you're buying like a skincare cream for X amount of dollars, it's a risk. If you haven't tried it, it's a risk for you. So what we try to do is provide samples, and we're starting to develop, such tools, digital tools that'll help, making that product choice a lot easier.
That sounds like some exciting new developments. Retail, for sure. That's a really interesting one. Okay, well, we are actually going to take a quick break for our brand new weekly segment with our Vox Pop Me's VP of Research, Brian Monsheen. This week, he's going to share tips on key components for writing concepts. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and enjoy Brian's bright idea of the week.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first installment of Bright Ideas. Today, I'm going to be talking through the key components needed for writing a good concept. So there's definitely some different schools of thought on ways to write concepts. I'm going to walk through a framework that I've used in my past that has proven pretty successful in getting positive results from target consumers.
All right.
So you want to keep in mind that a good concept will really
You're going to have to just wait another week, I guess, for Brian's bright idea.
And it's going to allow the consumer to really
and
connect
we will get that
with the idea in a
into
meaningful
the
way.
next
So
show.
you want to take some
I know
time to
you'll be
ensure
on
that
the
you've
edge
got
of
the
your
right
seat,
setup.
so be sure to tune in next week.
So before we get into the components, I want to
let's
just
get back
quickly
to the
walk through some of the
conversation
simple
with Jo.
guidelines that I usually try to follow when I'm writing a concept.
Let's talk a little bit about
So the first is that
technology.
you want
What
to keep it
role does
consistent.
technology play
Most
in
likely,
insights,
you're going to
and
have
how are you
multiple concepts that you're
integrating
comparing
new
against
technology
in a test.
solutions into into
And
your
you want to make sure that you keep
insight
that
strategy.
similar structure from concept to
Yeah,
concept.
so obviously,
I've seen cases
Jen,
where the
the
slightest
pandemic,
change
I
in
wouldn't
the
say,
concept
I would
framework
say
can make-
it's transformed research, but it kind of it was always needed and it was always going to happen, but I think it's just accelerated it. So you know, we were probably, I wouldn't say we were in the dark ages, but you know, there was a lot of conceptions that, you know, a research group should be, you know, we'll all sit together around a room, you know, we might show some stimulus, might show some concepts and things like that. And there's great value in doing that, but obviously because of the pandemic, we had to kind of shift those to online, and potentially, you know, you probably don't get the level of I don't know, the level of engagement between your participants. But what I really like is probably you get a bit more honesty. You haven't got somebody chirping in, and you haven't got you know, somebody else disagreeing with what you might say, because obviously, you know, they're kind of moderated in a really nice way now. We've obviously had to start to use different tools, and you know, obviously there's no replacements for surveys for getting that kind of, I don't know, quantitative validation of a particular idea or a particular challenge. But what I really have enjoyed doing is very much kind of video diaries, and you know, just kind of getting into, like we were saying before, getting into the consumer's life, you know, getting under the skin of, you know, what she's up to, you know, how she applies her makeup, you know, looking through her makeup bag, you know, looking through her toiletries and things like that, just to kind of understand, you know, what kind of products we should look to develop. We use obviously Vox Pops. That's a really valuable tool for us, because, you know, we might get a request from a particular category. I need to know a little bit about, I don't know, we'll give the example of retinol. So retinol, you know, is an ingredient that's used quite heavily within skincare. You know, some of the major players are talking about retinol quite a lot. But, you know, we kind of sensed that there was an understanding that consumers knew the word, but they didn't necessarily understand what retinol did. So, you know, launching some sort of like just some video chat of, you know, do you know what retinol is? And, you know, consumers will say, yeah. But then when you ask them to explain what retinol is, they're like, oh, it's something for your skin. And I'm like, okay, so you know it's something for your skin, but you don't necessarily, you know all the benefits, or you don't understand you know, the kind of the ingredients and how it'll affect your skin afterwards and things like that. So, you know, getting it from direct from consumers is really helpful, because the way Avon operates predominantly is through the representative and a brochure. So with our brochures, you know, we only have a certain level of time, a certain amount of time to grab that consumer in or grab that representative. We need to ensure that what we're writing in that brochure is easily understood by our representatives or by our consumers. So we can't be, you know, blinding them with science. They need to know what the product does, how it will help them in easy to use language. And doing those consumer videos, we really actually learn what kind of language they understand and necessarily what they don't understand as well. So, you know, that integration of, you know, just videos with consumers, it's so beneficial. And what we also use them a lot for as well is, you know, if we've got a particular product development, we've got a particular idea, potentially, I wouldn't say it's a Dragon's Den scenario, but sometimes we have to kind of, you know, justify the idea and explain why it might work. Having that consumer video of somebody saying, I've got this particular problem, it's worth its weight in gold. It's better than any survey. It's actually, you know, getting to the heart of, you know, the kind of the tension, the challenge that potentially Avon could address through a product.
I always love that. I mean, there's such a big difference of hearing someone actually say it in their own words than showing a chart or a graph. Like, so much more powerful. It's a reminder, right? Like, there's people behind all this data. There's people behind all these numbers. It's not just out of thin air. And I think when you look at that data so often, it's easy to forget, like, this all came from our consumers or our reps or whoever. And yeah, like really seeing their voice. I'm also like hysterical laughing over here because I am that like retinol person who knew it was a thing. I had no idea like I literally just about a week ago, like had to have it explained to me by a doctor. Got my first product with retinol in it. Now I get it. But yeah, that's there's definitely like so many words, science words in skincare that I just think people, I'll speak for myself, like, I guess when I was younger, there wasn't like a whole skincare routine, right? Now it's like your cleanser and your toner and your serum and your moisturizer, and this is morning and this is night. It's like 1,000 products you need, and nobody really understands how to do it. So we need you guys to tell us, what do we need to do?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's where we're kind of that gives us a real competitive advantage. We've got that brochure, we've got that opportunity to tell consumers or representatives how to use that product, but also obviously they can go online as well, and there'll be videos, there'll be tutorials, and all of like the additional information which goes with it in terms of the ingredients that are contained within all of our products. But yeah, another probably a good example as well is something that is a buzzword at the moment, particularly for majority of retail brands, is around sustainability, and we kind of get told that we have to continue to act in a way that's sustainable, potentially develop products that are sustainable, and the list goes on about sustainability. But potentially when you speak to a consumer, I did a Vox Pops the other day around sustainability, and the understanding of sustainability varies so much. Someone says, oh, if it's sustainable, it means it's going to last a long time. If it's sustainable, it means it's durable. And I'm thinking, no, there's a real, lack of understanding of what we term, as brands, as being sustainable or acting sustainably, and what the consumer understands. So therefore, we have to kind of elevate those messages about how we're acting sustainably rather than using the actual term sustainability. We'll look to recycle products. We'll look to, ethically source our products. And then the kind of, okay, so that is sustainability, but just kind of, putting it in, easier to understand language is so much more helpful. And, just understanding that consumers didn't necessarily understand the word sustainability was a real eye-opener.
Yeah, I bet that comes up a lot, actually, and talking to consumers, not realizing something you've been saying all along, that you're in the business, you understand it, and you just assume other people do too. It's, probably really, really helpful with the strategy. And so I guess in thinking about implementing like new technologies, new methodologies, like how do you balance onboarding something new, changing that process with doing something that is reliable and known and familiar to the team? Like digital transformation is such a challenge in the industry. Like what are some of the techniques that have worked for you?
But you know what, Jen, I think the biggest advantage that kind of goes across everything is time. And that really helps us, because a lot of the newer, technological research techniques that we use, they're just quicker. I can launch a video chat, today, and then by the time I get home from work, it will be completed. Consumers have already logged on and started to, submit their responses or whatever. So, that element of speed and time far overrides, the kind of the older techniques that we were using. Speed is definitely key, but then also agility. Potentially, online forums when I can actually, pass on a message to the moderator in real time and say, okay, they're talking about this. Can you just ask them if they know a little bit about this, which is, is so vital as well. So I think, what we've done a good job of within Avon is taking our teams on the journey with us. When we've started to introduce the example of Vox Pops, we showcased, just like a typical Avon consumer talking about Avon in their own words, and they're like, oh wow, I didn't know they felt like that. I didn't know they felt like this. And it's kind of the demonstration of, the consumer, like we said it again, in real life, really helps to kind of embed that kind of research technique. And don't get me wrong, it won't replace other research, programs or initiatives that we have. But, getting to know the consumer in a short space of time, let's be lean, let's be agile, and those kind of techniques will really, really help us. And just since I've been here, I've been with Avon, it's coming into my 8th year now. I remember, I used to action a research project at the very start. and your results had come back 3 months later. But now it's days or weeks, which is so important, because sometimes we need to make decisions on a very quick basis, and if I can just run a particular study within a few hours, then it's brilliant and can really help to make those decisions.
Yeah, it's almost like you got to take the leap, like try something, experience how much time it's going to save you or how it's going to help, and then it makes it easier to really build it into your workflows and make it something that is part of your everyday strategy, as opposed to something new you have to learn. Or I think sometimes there is a bit of a fear of like learning a new piece of technology or a new methodology is going to take time or resource that I don't have. But that I love that, like, just experiencing it for the first time, you realize actually this is going to really help me in the long run.
And I think, Jenny, it's one of those things where you take yourself as a consumer now, compared to 10 years ago. I wasn't shopping on my phone. I was going to the high street, trying on some items, and then coming back, potentially returning some of them. But now I just browse on my phone. The consumer has changed, so technology and research needs to change with it, and kind of understanding that kind of user experience is so key. Just making sure that we don't get left behind, that we do start to embrace these research techniques that you can have on your phone now. Be a bit more tech savvy and things. I'd love to see what research will look like in 10-15 years time. We will be writing in the air and literally throwing it up to the cloud. I don't know, but the potential's there.
Yeah, we'll all be just getting together and having consumer conversations in the metaverse or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be excited to see that develop. And so maybe talk a little bit about your process for doing research with product launches. We touched on this a little earlier about how, you really need to have a positive response to a new concept or a new product. So what's sort of the process you follow for new product launches and doing research?
Yeah, so we kind of it's not a short process. It's quite a lengthy process, but the reason it's lengthy is because it's got to be right, and we have to ensure that the innovation that we develop meets the consumer needs and also the representative needs as well. So what we often do is we kind of have like an ideas generation, but what we will do, those ideas are very much kind of wedded from insights that we've potentially got from some sort of qualitative research. We might do some video chats, we might do some ethnographies, we might do some diaries, we might do some focus groups, getting to know the consumer. And let's face it, we are continually innovating, but potentially, we've got some consumer videos from a few years ago that actually, will be really helpful. So we can kind of combine all of those kind of qualitative insights up front to help generate these ideas. And then what we'll often do is, we'll have a look at these ideas, we'll refine them a little bit, potentially we'll put them into sort of like an ideas test, and that will be a quantitative ideas test. And then, we'll look at the ones that perform really well. Potentially we don't need to do a lot about that, but the ones that probably didn't perform so well, or the ones that we thought would perform well that didn't, would probably look to optimize them a little bit, maybe change the wording, potentially the articulation wasn't quite right. And then we begin to develop them into concepts where, this is kind of like a very much a joined up process with our global marketing teams, also with our creative teams, kind of envisaging what that concept or that product might look like. And then the concept itself will go into a quantitative test. And then ideally, when we go to kind of, product and feasibility, actually when we've got like potentially a pilot product, for example, putting it into the consumer's hands, seeing how they'll use it. Someone told me a really interesting piece of information about one of the medicine brands here in the UK, that they developed a syringe for getting the medicine out of a bottle, but they did a user group with new mums, and one of the new mums put the syringe straight into the bottle and then tipped the bottle upside down, and that's how you drew the medicine. but that wasn't the intention of that particular syringe. It was supposed to work the other way up, but just having that and seeing how the consumer actually used the product was like revolution towards them, and that's how they kind of positioned it, which I think is really nice. As soon as you get that product into consumers' hands, seeing how they use it, even just from them taking off the cap, can they open it properly? Is it going to, I don't know, spray everything over them? Is it in good packaging and things like that? And just getting kind of their first initial spontaneous reactions is always really helpful, because this is the time where if we do need to make any sort of like product changes, then we can. But I think the key message is combining qualitative with quantitative, again, quantitative and qualitative, then potentially, you're on the right track.
Yeah. I mean, I can appreciate, like, it does sound like a bit of a lengthy process, but there's so much you're learning at every stage. There's really nothing that you can afford to skip.
No, that's it. And potentially as well, we will have, I don't know, let's say 8 to 10 concepts that perform really well, but that's probably 8 to 10 concepts per category. We could put some in a back pocket. Potentially we might not use them for this year's innovation, but potentially we might use them for future years' innovation as well. So all the work that we do isn't wasted. Any sort of optimization that we can do on those concepts will really help us for future innovation as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a good problem to have. We've got too many good ideas. We've got too many products that people want to buy. It's definitely a good problem to have. Well, I think we're going to try one more time to hear from our VP of Research, Brian Munton, before we wrap up. Let's see if we can get that clip rolling.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first installment of Bright Ideas. Today, I'm going to be talking through the key components needed for writing a good concept. So there's definitely some different schools of thought on ways to write concepts. I'm going to walk through a framework that I've used in my past that has proven pretty successful in getting positive results from target consumers. So you want to keep in mind that a good concept will really help bring the product and the experience to life. And it's going to allow the consumer to really connect with the idea in a meaningful way. So you want to take some time to ensure that you've got the right setup. So before we get into the components, I want to just quickly walk through some of the simple guidelines that I usually try to follow when I'm writing a concept. So the first is that you want to keep it consistent. Most likely you're going to have multiple concepts that you're comparing against in a test. And you want to make sure that you keep that similar structure from concept to concept. I've seen cases where the slightest change in the concept framework can inadvertently have an impact on the scores on the back end. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping things consistent throughout. You also want to make sure that the concept is clear and easy to understand. You certainly don't want a situation where there's confusion, because that's definitely going to have a negative impact on your purchase intent when you're looking at your data. And then finally, as far as visuals, I have no issue with including visuals, again, as long as it connects with the message and there's no understanding issues. So let's get into the framework. Typically, a concept is going to be one page. It's a few sentences, maybe a picture and some pricing and sizing information, and that's it. When you start out your concept, obviously you're going to have a concept name. So that's going to be at the top of your concept. You want to make sure it's clear and unique. And you can also decide whether or not you want branded or unbranded. So there's pros and cons to each of those. I think branded is good because it makes it immediately identifiable to the consumer. But at the same time, branded could bias the consumer, especially if it's a situation where they think this is way too far of a leap for this brand. So there's ways around that. You can go in keeping this concept unbranded, and then later on in your survey ask, okay, so if this product was for so-and-so brand, how would you react? How would that impact your purchase intent? So there's some solves depending on how you want to manage it. The next is your headline. So this is really your hook. So think of the most important idea you have with this concept and put that right in the beginning. This is going to be something that's just going to get them immediately interested in it. The next area really gets into what I call problem solution. So you're first going to highlight a problem that this product is eventually going to solve for. So this area is, I like to call it the consumer beliefs. So you're going to start with the insight. try to think about what problems that you're solving for with this product. This is really that consumer tension that will help set up the next section, which highlights the product's features and benefits. So you then get into the benefit, the consumer benefit. So why would a consumer want to buy this product? This section really addresses that need that you talked about earlier and what the solution is going to be. And I usually try to think about this in both the rational and the emotional sense. So you're trying to connect with the mind and the heart. And what I mean by that is, rational benefits are really all about what the consumer gets from this product or experience. But the emotional benefit is really what they're going to feel. So if possible, try to layer in any emotional benefits that you have for this, because it really helps create some empathy with the consumer and, again, draws them in more. Next is your RTB, which stands for reason to believe. This is, obviously you want to make this believable. So without being too technical, describe why this product delivers on the benefits that you talked about earlier. And, examples of RTBs can be things like compelling product features, third-party endorsements, or even product claims. And then finally, you can finish off the concept with pricing information, size information. If you've got a catchy tagline, add that in. And there you have it, a well-written, informative, and persuasive concept. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
I'm so glad we got that working. And I actually think that was quite timely after just talking about concept testing and how you guys at Avon, Jo, are, testing concepts and new innovations. What are your thoughts on Brian's structure for writing a concept test?
It's pretty much bang on and what the kind of thing that we would approach it as well. And I loved his, branded and unbranded, because to be honest, we have that debate with ourselves on numerous occasions, but we tend to go with unbranded and then potentially ask the fit to brand question later on in the survey as well. But no, absolutely spot on. And I think, it kind of goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. We need to explain what the product does, what challenge, what tension it addresses for the consumer, and therefore writing it in consumer language is so important. This scientific jargon, retinol, perfect example. It has to be easily understood, because when you put it into concept tests and you have consumers, reviewing the concept and they don't understand it, then obviously it's going to perform poorly, and potentially the people who've looked at developing that product are going to be disappointed. But if you don't articulate it in a way that the consumer understands, then they will be disappointed.
Lots of copywriting skills necessary for for researchers out there. Well, thanks so much, Brian, for those tips. And Jo, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a lot of fun, and I loved kind of hearing about your approach and all the work you guys are doing, and such a long-standing brand. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Jen. Thanks very much. Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Join us next week, where we'll have another episode. I'll be joined by Emmanuel Probst of Ipsos. We will see you then.